Well, guys, it's Amphyfx here. So today I'm going to be talking about support and resistance and the demand zone and the supply zone. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because I've come across retail traders who don't know the difference between a support and resistance and then a demand and supply zone. You'll be talking about demand and supply, and you'll be like, you're still talking about supply and resistance. So today I'm going to be showing you the difference between this four concepts, these things. I'm going to be showing the difference between them. I'm going to be showing you on a live chart what a support and a resistance level mean, what a demand zone and a supply zone mean. So if you stick to the end of this video, I'm very sure you're going to know the difference between them. So guys, if you're new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Also share the video to help a fellow trader out there. And also, if you want to use the broker which I use, you can find the link in the description. And if you're interested in mentorship, you can also reach me through the link in the description below. So guys, let's dive in. So support, what is a support? A support is like it acts like a floor, just like a floor in the market, just like your normal floor. So whenever let's say you throw a ball to the ceiling, right? The ball will come back and bounce, right? So just think of support like that. Support is like a floor in the market. This is a level where what price stops falling and bounces up. Just like the ball example, when you drop a ball on the ground, it bounces, stop, it bounce, it stop, it bounce. So it will never go below what below the floor level. That's like a support. Think of support like that. Now this shows where the buyers are active, like the retail traders or the retail buyers are active. But the smart money, the smart guys do not what follow this kind of system. But don't worry, I'll talk more about it. Then we'll talk about what resistance. Resistance is like what? It's like a ceiling, like a normal ceiling. When you throw a ball to the top, right? When you throw a ball up, what happens? It get resisted by the ceiling, right? It bounce up, bounce down, bounce up, bounce down, bounce down. It will never go above what? Above the ceiling level. So think of resistance level at that like your normal ceiling, but just like the ceiling in the market, right? So it's a price level where price stop rising and drops sharply. It drops down after reaching that level, and it shows what where sellers are active, especially the retail sellers, but not the smart guys. And then a demand zone. What is a demand zone? A demand zone is a zone or area and not just a line like your normal support level. Now let me go back to support again. Support is like your floor, right? And your resistance like your ceiling. Now your demand zone is what? Think of it like below, just below. It's just like your support, but it's not your support. Are you getting me? It's like your support, but not your support. Now, what differentiates them is what the ideology or the logic behind them. A zone or a demand zone is what is a zone or area and not just a line like your normal support level where big players or the smart players or the smart concept or the smart guys place their buy orders before. That's in the past. So when price returns to this level, they often buy again, pushing price up, right? So usually they form around what? Around a support area, but not basically a support area. Have that at the back of your mind. I'm going to show you on a live chart what the zones look like. And they represent a strong buying interest. Why? It's because buyers or the big guys usually place their orders there. So whenever you have mark out a demand zone, be very certain that there are big money, there are big guys placing their order around those areas to either buy in the future. So a supply zone is what? Is a zone or area where big players place their sell orders before. A supply zone is just like your resistance, but it's not your resistance. It's not a line, just like your resistance or a zone. It's more like it's also at the top like your resistance level, but it's not your resistance, right? So when price returns to returns to that zone, it often sell again, pushing price down. Now, they usually forms around a resistance area, but not necessarily a resistance zone. They represent what? A strong selling interest. Now, let's talk about support level. Let's say price have been going up, it will come, bounce, come, bounce, right? So let's say price bounce one, first touch, second touch. Now what are you anticipating? You're anticipating a what? A third touch. And when it bounce, you should what? You're expecting to what? To buy, right? So this is what? This is a support level. Why is it support? It's more like price price bouncing from what? From a floor level. So this is what? This is a support. Now resistance. Let's say price is going up, it reach up, it bounce back, reach up, bounce back, right? So this zone is what refers to as what? A resistance level. And what are you looking for? You're anticipating that what? Price should come back to the zone. The retail traders are what? Are anticipating that price should come back to the zone, or the support and resistance traders are waiting for price to come back to the zone here and what? And begin to what? To sell. That's what the retail traders trade. Those who trade support and resistance level. But the smart money, that's not how they trade. Now this is a resistance level. Now a demand zone. A demand zone, I said, a demand zone is what? A demand zone is more like a zone that have what? That have imbalances or gaps around it. Now there are logics behind a demand zone. For a demand zone to be a demand zone, there are certain things you look out for. It has to have what? It needs to have an imbalance and a break of structure. You can see this is a break of structure. A demand zone is in an uptrend, a break of structure. So this zone here, where price will react from, is what? Is what we refer to as a demand zone. Demand zone. And there will be what? There should be a fair value gap. A fair value gap. Now I don't want to go into detail about what a demand zone is or an order block is. If you want to know about that, you can check the video, my recent video I made about order blocks and how to identify what a valid order block. Your demand zone can be the same thing as your what? As your order block, and your supply zone can be the same thing as your what? As your what? As your order block. Order block is just the general name for what? For all these blocks, either your demand zone or your supply zone. So there should be what? A break of structure, a fair value gap, FVG, fair value gap, and then imbalance. This strong move you are seeing is what refers to us as imbalance. And then what? The demand zone itself. Now you can see the difference between what? A supply zone. All these things have to what? Check out for a zone to be referred to as what? To be referred to as a demand zone. So it's not the same thing as your what? As your normal support level where price come, bounce, bounce, come. No, no, no. So all these things have to what? Have to check out for a demand zone to be what? To be a valid demand zone. Now for a supply zone, let's say price is what? Doing series of lower lows, lower highs. I say supply zone is what? Is a zone where price is what? Likely going to what? Sell from. So let's say price is doing series of higher, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, then lower highs, right? So a supply zone is where price is likely to bounce from, right? And for a supply zone to be a valid supply zone, to be a valid supply zone, All these things here has to what? Has to check out. There should be what? A break of structure to the downside, FEG, FEG. That's the fair value gap. There should be a fair value gap. And then what? The imbalance, that's the impulsive move. The imbalance, the impulsive move. And then the what? The supply zone itself. Now, now let me use a simple term. A demand zone is what? Is the last block, the last candlestick before what? Before a strong push to the upside. And a supply zone is the last candlestick before a strong push to the downside. Now, have that at the back of your mind. Now, let's go to a live chart. Now, this is what? This is a resistance level. Why is it resistance? Price came what? Price came, bounce, drop, bounce, drop, bounce, and what? Reacting to that same level again. So we can what? Classify this as what? As a supply zone, and not necessarily what? A supply as what? As a resistance level, not necessarily a supply zone. Now, still we have supply level here. If you look at this block here, I said a supply zone is what? Is a block or the last candlestick before what? A strong push to the downside. Now let me mark it out. If I mark it from week high to the week low, then what? A break of structure. That's what? A break of structure. Now don't get confused. I'll show you more examples because I know some of you will be like, I'm still talking about resistance or support. No, it's not the same thing. There are there are difference between them. Now, this gap you are seeing, this huge gap here, is what refers to as what? As an imbalance. And then what? The supply zone itself. There's supply zone. And then the FEG is the adjacent gap. The FEG is what? The adjacent gap. The gap between what? Between the supply zone and the adjacent candlestick is what it refers to as what? As the FEG. Now all these things have to, what? To be in place for it to be a valid supply zone or a demand zone. Now that's explained a resistance. Resistance is just like a point where price bounce multiple times before falling. But a supply zone, for a supply zone to be valid, there must be what? A structure, a break of structure or market structural shift, a fair value gap, an imbalance, and then the supply zone itself. Now let me show you more example. Now for a demand zone, now have a look at this zone here. A demand zone, I said the last what? The last candlestick before a strong buy momentum. Now this is the last candlestick before a strong buy momentum to the upside. Mark it from week high to the week low. Then what do you see? There's a break of structure, and then a fair value gap. That's the gap between what? Between the demand zone and the adjacent candlestick. And then what? And then the imbalance the imbalance. That's what? The actual move, the actually positive move. That's what? Imbalance. And what you see, price return back to it, and then what? Respect it and begin to buy again. That's a demand zone. It is not a supply zone. Let me show you my example. Now this is what? This is a support. This is a support level. Why? Price bounce multiple times from the zone and still respect the zone. That is a support zone. Now you can see the difference between support and demand zone. For a zone to be a demand zone or a supply zone, there must be a break of structure. There must be for a zone to be a valid demand zone or supply zone. All these things have to be present. There must be what? A break of structure. Must be an F value, that's FVG fair value gap, and there must be what? An imbalance. That's the impulsive move I talked about. Must be an imbalance. And then what? And then order block itself, or the OB, which is what? Which is either your demand zone or your supply zone. So all these things have to what? Be in place before you can call a zone, either a demand zone or a supply zone. And demand zone is just like what? It's like your buying zone. Your supply zone is like what? Always at the top. That's your selling zone. So more example, you can see now this is a demand zone here. I said demand zone is the last candlestick before what? Before it pushed to the upside. You can see it's a valid demand zone. Break of structure. Fair value gap. There's a fair value gap here. Fair value gap. Fair value gap. This gap here. And then there's an imbalance. Right? So price, if price come back to it, price will likely what? Respect it before what? Going back, before buying again. So demand zone is where institutions or the big guys place their what, their buy orders, and the supply zone is where the big guys or institution place their what, place their sell orders. Whereas a support zone or a support level is where price bounce multiple times, and a resistance zone is where price bounce at the top, resist at the top multiple times. So there is difference between what? Between the demand zone and the supply zone. So if you learn something from this video, don't forget to what? To hit the like button and share this video with your fellow traders. Also, if you want to learn more, I have my book here which I wrote, the Playground 2.0, which will guide you on how I trade, the entry models I use. It's not just a normal or in your normal or your regular book you read. It is filled with what? With live chat and examples that you can what? You can learn from. It's more like how should I put it? Your your and something easier to to learn from, instead of if you're not ready for mentorship, you can what? You can read the book. It will also guide you as a guide. It will help you as a trader and guide you on how I trade. It is filled up with what? Multiple charts. So guys, that's that. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. See you guys. Peace out.